I had a box show up at my doorstep today, and upon opening it, this is what I found inside. But if we look on the end of the box here, we can see that this is a product from Bachmann Trains. Looking at the front of the box shows that this is a product from their Spectrum line. And down below here, we can also see that this is a large-scale model. Now, this model, alongside the C19 and the 2-truck Climax, is one that I thought I'd never get my hands on due to the high cost. More on that in a bit, but first, let's get this out of the box. Alright, here's the model out of the box, and it's actually been about a week since I last recorded, because if you go back on the footage of me unboxing this model, you may be able to notice a few issues about it. The first being that the smokestack on the unit, this had actually come off the model. It was in two separate pieces and just floating around in the bag. But in addition to that, the coal load on the tender here, it was actually sitting back on the tender rather than down in it, and as a result this was allowed to just float around in the bag too, and it heavily scratched up the shell of the tender and also damaged a few parts. So what I had to do was get in contact with Bachmann, because clearly this model had been improperly packed from factory, and about a week went by. They sent me replacement parts to put on the model. And I did do a separate video in relation to the damages on the model and the repairs I made to it. And I'll go ahead and leave a separate link to that video on screen and also in the video description, so you can head over and watch that. I didn't include it in this review just because I feel like it would make the video drag out too long. So the model comes with some paperwork. The first thing is a warranty card, which you need to send in within 10 days after receiving the model. I'm hoping I can still send this in because it's actually been more than 10 days due to the issues I had with this. But there's also a few sheets in regards to warranty information in several different languages. And also there's a book here for the 260, which mainly talks about the features of this model. There's a bit of a history about the 260 Mogul, and also information in regards to maintenance. But there's also some sheets here that talk about taking the model apart. That's for adjusting the chuff cylinder. I can see there's one here for taking the shell off the model, and also tender assembly, and also some exploded diagrams in case you have to take the model apart or order replacement parts if something breaks. So this model comes with a few accessories, and to begin with you get two figures, the first being an engineer, which this one appears to have a very unnatural looking neck. But also included is a fireman with a shovel. You also get another knuckle coupler. Now this one here is from models that use body mounted couplers. The one that's on the model right now is for use with truck mounted couplers. So this is included if you want to swap those out. Also, there's a tube of smoke fluid, which probably go ahead and use this at some point. And lastly, there is this circuit board with wires. I'd assume this is if you want to install some sort of aftermarket DCC sound system or something. You know, you put your board on here and this just plugs into the model. Now, when it comes to the features on this model, there is certainly not a shortage of them. And in regards to the detail on this unit, it is way over the top, and it'd have to be for something from the Spectrum line. But I'm going to read off the list of features here for this unit. And to begin with, it has an advanced, non-proprietary plug-and-play electronics printed circuit board to accommodate the control system of your choice, including conventional DC power, NMRA, NEM, DCC, and or RC operation. It has a powerful precision-balanced can motor connected to an all-metal gearbox and gears with appropriate gear reduction for a 6-wheel drive system with superior performance at realistic speeds. It has a fully operating Stevenson valve gear with operating piston valves, crosshead pumps with piping per the prototype, and Johnson bar and linkage. It has a fully equalized locomotive suspension system to provide super smooth operation on uneven track. It has electrical pickups from all drive wheels in both tender trucks. There are 2 optical sensors, 1 in each cylinder, to give you the option of adjusting the timing and count of steam chuffs. It has a factory installed speaker with wire pigtail to allow easy installation of optional aftermarket sound. It has 2 switches behind the smoke box door to allow you to choose whether the headlight/ash pan, which it doesn't have actually, flicker and smoke generator are turned off or controlled by the device in the advanced non-proprietary plug-and-play socket. It has easy access to switches in the tender for motor power on, off, and choice of track pickup or battery power operation according to NMRA or large-scale railroading practices. It has a realistic coal or wood load in the tender per the prototype. It has strap or wood pilot per the prototype. The option for either body-mounted or truck-mounted coupler height, metal frame drivers, hangers, driver leaf springs, side rods, piston rods, valve guides, guide rods, handrails, and piping. It has a brass-plated metal whistle, machine brass pop valves, and bell with metal clapper, separate sanding lines, cab details, LED headlight, load-synchronized LEDs and firebox and ash pan, which again it doesn't have, for realistic fire glow, complete backhead detail including steam gauge with piping, throttle, sight glass fittings, and operating firebox door, and also the engineer and fireman figures are included. Now, one thing I wanted to mention about this model is that there are 2 sets of wires with plugs that run between the locomotive and the tender, and these plug into the front of the tender here. But something to be careful of unplugging these wires from the tender is that you don't want to end up pulling these wires out of the plug by breaking the solder joint. If you do, you got a bit of a repair job on your hands. Some guys have recommended just not uncoupling the tender from the locomotives. Some people have also suggested you run a small bead of hot glue between the wire and the plug here to try to add some strength to it, and I've done the same thing with my C19 that I have. Unfortunately, the smaller Mogul unit I got, the previous owner apparently pulled one of these wires out in the past and completely destroyed it, and I still got to get replacement parts for that. But yeah, this is something to be very careful of if you have this unit. Now, Bachmann did 3 other 260s besides the Raton here. They also made the Reveille, the Glenbrook, and the Emma Nevada. And of course, those models all have details per the prototype. Bachmann didn't just make one 260 and then recolor it for the other 3. They actually put details on the models which you'd find on the real locomotives. And I'm sure some of you are probably sitting there asking, well, a model like this, with this amount of detail, how much does it cost? And I'll tell you right now, this is not a cheap model, because it actually retails from Bachmann for $1,299, basically call that $1,300. And most people wouldn't see it this way, but it is definitely worth that amount of money. The quality is definitely there, because we are dealing with something from Bachmann's Spectrum line, although I did not pay anywhere near that $1,300 price tag for this. This model I purchased from Al over at Roll Easy Wheels in Las Vegas. I buy a lot of large scale equipment from him, and he managed to get into a deal with Bachmann on these units. And believe it or not, I scored this model for $566 delivered to my door. And that is basically around $733 below retail price. And I can tell you right now, it was well worth making that purchase. So I guess I'll give my final thoughts on this model before I wrap up this review. And to be honest, I'm impressed with this. It looks good, it's got a high amount of detail, the list of features goes on forever, and I think if you're somebody that's into large scale, this would make a great addition to your collection and railroad. Although I would not recommend paying the $1,300 price tag for this unit, even though it's worth every penny. I'd say you'd be better off if you can find this for around $700, if not less, then it's well worth picking up one of these units. But I wouldn't go out and pay full-on retail for one of these. I mean, large-scale equipment isn't cheap as it is. But I am debating about getting the matching passenger stock for this locomotive, and if I do end up getting it, I'll do a video on that as well. But before I wrap up the review, real quick, I want to give a big thank you to Bachmann Trains and their customer service for helping me out getting replacement parts for this unit. If you remember, it was damaged when I unboxed it. So again, big thank you to Bachmann Trains. I really appreciate it, and I continue to enjoy your products. But as soon as I go ahead and get this model oiled and maintenance done on it, we'll go ahead and look at the model running.